Hey, family, it's your sister Jocelyn here, and welcome to another episode of Faith on the Journey. If this is your first time tuning in, we welcome you. We are so glad that you are here and want you to know that we're committed to helping you strengthen your faith, heal your heart, and discover a sense of community. And we do so by connecting you with a team of Christian counselors. We also offer trauma healing groups throughout the year, and we help churches across the country to start trauma healing ministries. You can learn about these resources and so much more by visiting our website at faithonthejourney.org. Again, that is faithonthejourney.org. Now, today we're continuing the conversation from last week. We had Reverend Dr. Naomi Mitchell on the show, and we had an amazing conversation about family matters. This episode is a continuation of our conversation from last week. It was a good one, y'all. So if you didn't see the previous episode, be sure to go back and check it out. But let's get started with part two of our conversation on family matters. We talked about how our family dynamics can impact our relationships, current and new relationships. But I want us to go into a couple additional topics for this part two of our conversation. And this is really focusing on how family dynamics, our own like immediate family, can roll over into our new family if we get married. So let's talk a little bit about in-laws and how sometimes sometimes our in-laws, we can be blessed with wonderful in-laws, and we could be like, Lord, what did I marry into in-laws? And going back into what we talked about in part one about how sometimes you have to set those boundaries and navigate certain situations around that. So I just want us to talk a little bit about navigating different issues as it relates to family in-laws.
Yeah, I oftentimes say, even in the times where I'm talking with singles and dating coaching, it's important for you to be around the person you're considering marrying or spending a lot of time with. It's important to actually be around their family. It's important for you to see how they interact with their family. It's important to see how their family interacts with them. It's important to find out what their family dynamics are. Because oftentimes we'll say, well, we're not marrying the family, and that's true to a certain extent. We aren't necessarily marrying the family, but the family will continue to be a part of the relationship overall, right? And so your in laws will impact the relationship. And sometimes you do have good in laws, and other times you may have in laws that may not be so good. And so, one, you have to separate the primary relationship between you and your significant other from the family. And you all have to create boundaries around your relationship. For instance, you don't tell the family members what's going on inside of your relationship because your family loves you. And say, for instance, you and your significant other, your fiance, are planning on getting married, and you all have an issue and that you haven't worked through, and so your emotions are all over the place. You're upset. You're feeling a certain kind of way, and you go and you talk to your mother about it, or your father, or sister, or brother, and of course they want to defend you, and they like, no, he didn't. And so they are feeling this certain way about the person because in your time of being emotional and upset and saying certain things, they've taken it at face value. Well, you said these things out of this emotional charge that you really didn't mean. And then after you talked it over with your significant other, your fiance, and you all have worked through it, then you all are fine. But then your family members looking at your significant other like, remember that time when he said this or when he did this and it's going to continue to be in your ear about that person and not allowing you or causing you to feel a certain way about your significant other, or to not be able to get over that because they're seeing them in a different light. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And we also have to recognize that even if you really didn't go into detail about an argument that you might have had with your significant other, you might just be sharing something that's casual that you don't even think is a big deal. But it's possible that family members can project their previous experience and pain on you in a way where they like, "Girl, I don't know about that. That sounds a little controlling to me," or blah, blah, blah. And then next thing you know, you like, wait, is that person being control? Is it and so we also have to be very mindful about family could be very well intentioned and give you bad advice.
Oh,
So
yes, hear me. Absolutely, they do. And like you said, and I think very well intentioned and give you bad advice. So setting boundaries, right? Internal boundaries, like I said before, external boundaries. Internal boundaries are the boundaries that you set for you and your significant other. Then external boundaries are boundaries that you set to protect your relationship from outside. And so you all have to sit down and say, we really should not have these conversations with our family members because though we love them and they love us, they're not a part of the intimate parts of our relationship. So they may not understand and they may mean well, like you said, and projection is real. If someone, maybe they've had a bad experience and they have a certain outlook on relationships or marriage or men in general or women in general. And so then you begin to internalize that, and it can become a difficult situation for you and for your significant other.
that's very true. And so, just being mindful of that, I think, is the message that Reverend Naomi and I are trying to share in terms of what you allow people to know about your story, what's happening in your intimate spaces. You want to be protective of that union and that relationship, and seek wise counsel. So, hear me. Sometimes you do need to seek wise counsel, and there's wisdom in that. And so, this is where Reverend Naomi Services can come in handy because she does provide that type of counseling if you are trying to navigate a difficult situation, because difficulties happen within marriages or between a girlfriend and boyfriend or wherever status you're in. That stuff happens. And sometimes you do need help by seeking out counseling. And so, very important. I won't spend too much time on that, but I did want to put that out there that Naomi is, again, a member of our team who is an amazing counselor who can offer that service to you. But transitioning into another topic that I've heard many of my friends and colleagues talk about is sibling rivalries. And when I talk
Hmm.
about this particular issue, I mean, they've been hurt by their siblings. Their siblings might just have a vendetta against them. They might not respect them. They are at a place where, like holidays, they're thinking, do I need to go if this person's going to be there? When that type of stuff happens, Naomi, how do you advise or counsel an individual who's on that side of the fence where they've been hurt and they feel almost like they have to separate themselves from their entire family due to the pain that a sibling might have caused?
Yeah, that's real. And people can become so anxious even thinking about, having to go to family events over the holidays. Like, should I go or shouldn't I go? And you again have to make those decisions for yourself because those things are real. And if it's going to cause you a setback or so much pain and depression afterwards, or you feel as if this is just not good for you emotionally, then you really have to begin to say, um, think about, do I really want to go? How much time do I spend there if I do go? What conversations will I have while I'm there? That aunt that you go around, and every time you get around her, she tends to say things, off the cuff, that are mean and that are hurt, that is hurting because she feels she can do that because she's the elder auntie. And she'll say things, without just stuff that whatever comes up comes out. Woo, girl, you really gained a lot of weight. You not married yet? Girl, you still look like your old no good father. Just stuff people say without even thinking about it. Or just the fact that, last year you had a really a blow up with one of the family members because they, crossed a boundary. They didn't appreciate the fact that now you've decided that you no longer want to participate in a certain family practice or carry a certain family secret or whatever the case may be. and you're continued to be villainized, it's important for you to just say, do I really want to go to this function, or do I want to go someplace else where I feel safe? And you can still go to certain events, but then you have to say, I can only spend a certain amount of time here. Maybe I'll drop in and say hi to mom and dad, stay for a moment, and then I'll leave, because sometimes it just takes you too far back from the healing that you've already been practicing. When you go back into these places, it becomes, you become triggered.
Triggering is real. And can you speak a
Hmm.
little bit to triggering, what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So a trigger is something that causes you to experience a situation all over again, right? It's a reminder. It can take you all the way back to a situation that may have occurred, in childhood or previously. It could be a real event, it could be an imagination, or it can be a past event, right? Something in the past. And so what you have to begin to do is, if everything goes right in the trigger, you can be able to have a healthy mindset about it and say, okay, this is not that. I am not there. I know that's something that person has said, but this, I've overcome this. So you can be able to manage your emotions around the trigger. But sometimes if you can't, you'll either, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? Because this trigger has impacted you emotionally or has called a fear defense. And so then you react in either of these ways. So fighting means you begin to protect yourself and put your guard up and say things that begin to fight about it. Maybe sometimes even physically fight, depending on the situation. Or flight, it's like, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm leaving this situation. You either emotionally leave or you leave physically. Freeze mean you just kind of sit there and take it. Or fawn is you just go along to get along. You let people say whatever they want to say, do whatever they want to do in order to keep the peace. And so a healthy response to that is being able to recognize your emotion, respond accordingly, and say what you need to say and be done with it, right? That's a healthy response. How am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? What just happened? And giving yourself time to breathe and to take it in and say, okay, I want to respond this way. I don't want to respond angry. You want to act instead of react.
The pandemic, domestic abuse, gun violence, depression. Unfortunately, members of your church have been experiencing tremendous pain in recent years. As a church leader, you can no longer be silent about what's happening in your congregation. You want to do more to help your members heal, but there are challenges. Pastors don't have the capacity to provide the type of counseling that trauma survivors need. And if you have a church of leaders who are willing to step up, that's fantastic. But you might not have the resources to train these leaders to provide the necessary trauma-informed care to the body. This is where Faith on the Journey Counseling steps in. We'll equip you to become a trauma healing church. We will train your staff and lay leaders on a curriculum that's been utilized in over 100 countries and has been translated in over 150 languages. This curriculum was created by the world's best psychologists and Bible scholars. And the best part is extremely affordable, adaptable, and can be implemented right away. As a trauma survivor, I've gone through this curriculum myself, and I'm telling you, it was life-changing. If you're looking for a proven way to guide your members to heal from trauma, I encourage you to visit traumahealingchurch.com. Take advantage of some free resources to help your members to heal. And while you're there, please review the details on this world-proven curriculum. Thank you. So I'm curious, when dealing with a family member who you've had challenges with, whether it's a sibling or whoever, parent, cousin, if you have tried to confront them before or had a conversation, when I say confront, it doesn't have to be something that was aggressive, but talk to them about whatever the issue was and it wasn't received and you got hurt in that process. I'm asking for people who I have in mind who feel like it doesn't even matter if I have anything to say to them anyway. They're not going to listen. They're not going to change. When do
Mhm.
you where do you draw that line between like, no, I should say something to them because their behavior is not okay, to, you know what, let me save my breath? What's your thoughts on navigating that decision on when you should go in the direction of potential conflict?
Honoring your own boundaries and being able to say, we've had this conversation before, and they continue to ignore my needs or ignore my boundaries. And though I love this person, I just have to draw the line. Like I know that the moment I walk in, they're going to begin to say this and say that or do this and do that, then I just have to say, I'm not going to put myself in this position. And to be able to, you have to cut that person off because they continue to cross boundaries and continue to disrespect you. Am I answering your question?
You are. You are. I have a follow-up question, and I'm gonna have you continue. What if it's a parent, right? The Bible talks about honoring your parents, and you're like, "Well, it's my mom or it's my dad." I'm like, I don't wanna cut them off, but they hurting me, right? And so is there like, do you make exceptions, or it even mom or dad? Does this rule apply?
Yeah, the rule does apply. Like even if it's mom or dad, you still have to set some boundaries if they continue to hurt you and it's to your own detriment. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily cut them off. You can call and check on them. You can send them cards in the mail. You can, send them gifts for whatever it is that you feel that you want to do for them, but you still have to draw the line and protect yourself. Toxic relationships, it's not like they physically kill you, even though some can, but they can. And I was thinking about this yesterday. They can actually cause an emotional uh, uh, death, sort of like to you, right? They can cause you to feel dead when you're around them, or feel um, just stuck, or, emotionally drained, depressed, anxious when you're around these people. And if you do the work of healing, going to counseling and all of the things that you need to do to be better, and then going back around these people causes a setback, then that's the time that you have to really make a decision to say that I have to cut this person off, because it's causing me too much pain and too much harm and too much trauma. Even if it's a mother or father. I've had I've had clients who have been hurt, sexually, physically, emotionally, and in every aspect by a parent. And because they are the parent continues to place a guilt, trip on them and say, I'm your mother, or I'm your father. Well, then they have a role to play as well. If you're my mother or you're my father, then you need to act as if you're my mother or father. There are some things that a mother or father does. There are things that a mother or father does not do. And if you're doing things that a mother or father shouldn't do, then I need to draw a line, and I need to make a decision. If you aren't, I need to make a decision for me.
That's key. That's spot on. And that actually brings me to my next question, because sometimes you do have to make the decision to cut someone off. But at the same time, how does forgiveness play a role in this? Can you cut them off and still have forgiven them? What's your thought process on forgiveness as relates to your healing process, even in situations where you have to distance yourself from someone?
Forgiveness is a process. You know, as Christians, we oftentimes, and I think I talked about this in one of our other interviews together. Um, People oftentimes, especially as Christians, expect us to say, hey, you're a Christian. If you want God to forgive you, you have to forgive other people. And I understand that. However, there's a process to that. And sometimes people continue to cause you, multiple traumas, or continue to do things to you over and over again and take advantage of the fact that they know you're Christian and you're supposed to forgive them, and so sometimes people don't necessarily want or need your forgiveness. So you have to think about that, because if they continue, they don't mean what they say. When they, even if they say I'm sorry, and half of them don't even ask for forgiveness or even say I'm sorry, right? They will continue to harm you. And so you have to make a decision. What does forgiveness really look like in this situation? Does this person need me to forgive them or even want me to forgive them? Or do I need to forgive them for what they've done to me for myself? If I'm holding unforgiveness, unforgiveness can cause harm to you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. If we're holding on to some things, well, I've held on to some unforgiveness to the point where I have become physically ill. It has impacted me physically because someone has hurt me so badly, and I kept rehearsing it over and over again, holding it close to, to my heart, where it caused me more harm because I nursed it and I rehearsed it and I didn't forgive the person. And though forgiveness is a process, the process has to begin because that person has gone on with their life. They may not even know that you're hurting in this way, and you're still dealing with it. You're still holding on to it. So you have to begin the process of forgiveness. Now, forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation, right? Forgiveness could mean that I release you from what you've done to me. I release that situation, but I'm not going to hold on to it anymore because it's causing me as much harm as it did when you first did it to me, when you first offended me, when you first violated me. So I'm going to release it and release you, but that doesn't mean that I have to allow you back into my life. I forgive you, but I'm no longer going to be in relationship with you. Or I forgive you, and you're no longer going to hold that particular space in my life that you once did. Like you're still my family, and you're still my sister or my brother, my mother, my father, but I'm not going to allow you that place back into my life for you to be able to hurt me again. One, because you haven't changed. The evidence of someone who is sorry, or someone, who has hurt you, is one, if they apologize, and two, if their behavior changes. If that doesn't happen, then they are not sorry for what they've done to you. And so again, you have to make a decision. I'm going to release you from that, and I see that I have to hold you at a certain distance because I'm not going to allow you to do that to me again. What is it? One time, shame on you. Two times, shame on me. Like if you do it once to me, shame on you. But if I allow you to do it again, that's my problem.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Very helpful, Naomi. And the last question I really want to talk about today is that we can choose family. There are people who they're not blood, but they family. They're more family to us than some people who are our blood relatives. And so, how have you seen chosen family be helpful for people in their healing process so that they do feel like they have a community, even if their blood family might have disowned them or really been hurtful to them in their past?
Yeah, so one of the keys to overcoming and recovering from, trauma is, being in control, right? You have to feel as if you're in control, as and in a sense of not allowing certain structures to control you. So, like the family structure, if you feel like you cannot get out or away because this is, your family, it re-traumatizes you, right? It can cause also, vicarious trauma, because the trauma that this person is dealing with and have not um been healed from, then they carry that trauma onto you, generational traumas that go through families. What we have to do then, like you said, is have other people that we trust. Having people that we can trust in our lives, where we can actually feel secure. People that do not make you feel unsettled. That people that contribute to your healing process is so important. That could be a support group, that can be a church family, a community in which you feel as if you can thrive. Those people are important to have in your life, and not let the fact that a family structure or system not allow it to control you, because it is family. And so it's important for you to choose people that you want to be in your life, and the reason you choose them is because they have earned that seat in the front row of your life, that they have proven themselves to be trustworthy, transparent, that they are reliable, and they have been consistent. Those are the people that you want in your life, that you can grow with, that you can love, that support you, and vice versa.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes. Naomi, are there any final words that you would give to someone who is struggling with family matters? Like they're hurting, they've had some difficulties with family members. What words of encouragement would you offer them today?
First thing I would just say, continue to pray for them, continue to pray for yourself. Prayer changes things, prayer changes people, prayer changes situations, but prayer changes you, right? And so asking God to continue to be able to function in ways that are healthy, allowing you to set healthy boundaries, and not for you to stay in bondage to certain people and situations because they are family members. But being able to step away from them, knowing and setting boundaries, right? Again, that we've talked about so much today, boundaries that are healthy for you. And again, boundaries aren't walls, they are like fences that open from your side, right? So that you can allow what you want in, and allow and put out what you don't want. Um, but the other piece is, I think that family is important. And so being able to manage family relationships are key. Sometimes we say things that we shouldn't say. Sometimes we do things that we shouldn't do. And so just being mindful about how we interact with the people that we love, and how we treat people that we love. When we love someone and we care for someone, we don't do and say things to hurt them. If we need to be healed from things that hurt us, because we do know that hurting people hurt people, then we need to get the help that we need and the support that we need, so that we can heal and become a healer, as opposed to someone who hurts others. And then the other thing about forgiveness, one of the definitions that I love, and we wrote it in our book, Shattered: How to Overcome a Broken Marriage. It works in relationships, all relationships as well. But forgiveness is giving up all hope for a better past. Forgiveness is giving up all hope for a better past. What does that mean? It means that you're not living life in the rear view mirror, looking in the rear view mirror. Because so often we live in the past and we can't move forward to the future. Can you imagine driving down the highway and we're looking in the rear view mirror trying to go forward? What do you think will happen? You continue to have accidents that become, your fault. And you not only hurt yourself, but you hurt other people, because you're looking in the rearview mirror. You have to begin to say, yes, that did happen. I hate that happened. I wish that it had not have happened, but it did happen. So how do I move forward? I move forward by picking up the pieces, right? Reframing the vision of what I thought this should be, and then moving forward. We can reframe our vision. We can restore our story. We don't have to live in the same way or go in the same direction that we've been going, right? We can restore our story. We can tell our narrative is so important, and we can change the narrative. We don't have to let our traumas or our past or other people tell our story or be our story. That's a part of our story that happened, but now I'm letting that go and I'm moving forward.
Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Naomi. This has been an amazing conversation. I know that you've helped some people out today. You've helped me. And I look forward to continuing to work with you as we help people to heal and know God's love. Thank you again for being a guest on the show today.
Amen. Thank you so much for having me. God bless you.
Wow, what an amazing show. Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Naomi, for being on the show with us today. And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Faith on the Journey. And if you enjoyed today's broadcast, be sure to share it with a friend, subscribe. And if you're listening on podcasts, Apple Podcasts, you leave a 5-star review. Let's get this message out to the world. And thank you again for tuning in, everyone. And until next week, you keep your faith on the journey. I'll see you.